Narendra Modi is on a two-day visit to Uzbekistan to attend the 22nd Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. Now, he reached Samarkand last evening, and he will be sharing the stage with leaders of 7 nations. But a few of these are in particular focus, mainly Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping. Now, while a bilateral with Putin is on the Prime Minister's agenda, suspense continues over whether he will hold talks with Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the summit. Now, with Russia, China and Iran, the summit is increasingly taking an anti-West stance, and therein lies India's challenge, a balancing act. Now, before he left India for Uzbekistan, the Prime Minister stated that a number of decisions for mutual cooperation in areas of trade, economy, culture and tourism are likely to be taken at the meet. Now I'm crossing over to our Foreign Affairs correspondent Abhishek Jha to give us more details. Abhishek, what do we know about the possible meetings that are going to be taking place on the sidelines of the summit?
So clearly, Aisha, there is going to be some meetings of Prime Minister Narendra Modi today, starting from today morning when the SCO group will be sitting together, the permanent members grouping will be sitting together and discussing about the regional and the global issues of importance. The first session is going to be a closed door session where the permanent members will be sitting and discussing. That will be followed by an open session where observer country members and guest countries and dialogue partners will also be present and expressing their opinions on the various issues of importance. Prime Minister's today's engagement, the bilateral engagements, starts in the second half of the day. Prime Minister is slated to have a bilateral talk with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin. That meeting will be followed by a bilateral talk with his Uzbekistan's counterpart, Shavkat Mirziyoyev, President Mirziyoyev. And third meeting, which is also very important, in the context of present-day energy crisis and India's long-term energy security. Prime Minister is also going to have a bilateral meeting with President of Iran, Ebrahim Raisi. This will be the first meeting between the two leaders ever since Ebrahim Raisi has come to power in Iran. India, which has been a traditional importer of Iran's crude in the last several decades, has substantially reduced its dependence on Iranian oil after the US influenced sanctions on Iran. We'll have to see how the two leaders, when they'll be meeting, how much of energy security will be in their agenda. Also, there has been a lot of cooperation between India and Iran on the food security aspect also. That will also have to be seen. We know that in the last few years, in the aftermath of COVID pandemic and then subsequently Russia-Ukraine conflict, global supply chain has disrupted badly. Food crisis, the crisis of essential commodity has impacted every single or big countries in the world. There has been crisis and shortage of fertilizers. So we'll have to see how does all the important issues of global and regional importance feature in the bilateral talks of Prime Minister Modi with his other counterparts.
Now, Abhishek, could you also decode the challenge that the SCO summit poses to the West?
Of course, the SCO in itself is becoming a major challenge because of the multiple differences among its countries in terms of bilateral relations. We know that India, China have been dealing with a standoff, military standoff along LAC for several months now. India-Pakistan relationship is known to be soury because of the terrorism issues that India has been highlighting not only bilaterally but also at global platforms. And in that context, India, China and Pakistan also being the major members of this grouping, it becomes very pertinent that these countries also have a cordial relationship so that the collective goal of SCO could be achieved when decided in the meeting. Talking about India-Russia relationship, this relationship has been a very cordial and very traditional partnership in the last several decades, and we have also seen in the recent days how India has increased its import of Russian oil to feed the need of its 130 crore population in the back home. So while there are aspects of cooperation among SCO member countries, there is always an aspect of differences also. So in given that background, this has been the fundamentals of SCO to put behind the bilateral differences and move forward with a collective goal that can help the region prosper better, because mostly the Central Asian countries have their borders, along China, and in fact the whole idea of SCO was to sort out the boundary disputes with China and five Central Asian countries. Over the several years, this grouping has emerged as one of the major regional or Asian grouping where it dominates about 40% of the global GDP and almost same amount of the global population as well. But now, as we see that the more members from the other parts of the world are also trying to get the permanent membership, this grouping is surely going to become one of the key grouping of nations in Asia, which will have a larger population and GDP base in comparison to any other grouping in the world comparable to only G20.
All right, now Uzbekistan authorities threw a party for all of the SCO delegates and played Jimmy Jimmy Aja Aja and I'm a Disco Dancer, among other songs, to welcome them. Take a look.